Cool. So yeah, I mean, basically, just Luke invited me to come down and talk to you guys. First of all, I just want to understand who I'm talking to, because it'll just, guide some of the points that I make. So if you're in your first year, can you just put your hand up? Any first years? What about second year? Okay then. Is there anyone in third or final year? Yeah? All right. Okay, you guys. Cool. All right. So skipped on there. Yeah. Basically, my name's Nick Chubb. I'm a senior industrial designer at IDC, Industrial Design Consultancy. So we're based just outside Windsor, and we're a full-service product development agency. So we've been around 45 years this year. One of the sort of oldest product design consultancies, basically started by a guy called Mike Woodall, who was a designer at Ford, was an automotive designer, and that naturally led into doing consumer products as well. And then more recently getting involved with medical devices, surgical instruments and healthcare projects, as well as the consumer products as well, and also like specialist industrial equipment. So, we've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. Just a few examples of a few projects. Don't want to spend too much time on this, but this is a coffee machine that IDC did for Mars. The next one along, this is orthopedic instruments. And the next one along, this is a specialist piece of equipment for sports broadcasters. So if you watch a football match and it flashes up for 5 seconds of a highlight clip, this is the device that's been used to find that clip and pull it out and bring it in. So it's used in sports broadcasting. On the far right, this is a 3D scanner. It scans the internals of automotive parts. Bottom right, a bit of user interface design. This was for a company called Visteon, so these went into smart cars. If you're wondering what the Red Bull car is, basically the head designer at Red Bull Formula One was asked if you didn't have to meet all the rules and regulations of Formula One, what would the car look like? So he designed it, and it was basically for the latest Gran Turismo game for PlayStation. And IDC, we also have a full model making workshop as part of our business as well. So we built a full-scale Red Bull Formula One car, and it was shown at like an event for PlayStation. This is a video laryngoscope. So learning about consumer products and developing those. But really, when you start developing surgical devices, this is a device that goes down someone's throat to look at their larynx, and there's a camera at the end that brings it up on the screen. So you can imagine the requirements and everything you've got to learn about for a project like that. So there's just a few examples of the types of stuff we do. My background, I started at Sheffield Hallam. That's where I studied design. I'd say that I was always passionate about design even before then, but I think formally, university is where the people would say where they began. And that was a lot of live projects, and I'm pretty similar to Bournemouth, I'm sure. But that's where my journey began. My final major project was a birthing chair. So I spent about a year of my life learning about giving birth, and developed this birthing chair. That was my final major project. My journey in terms of the different type of work I've done, sort of before I was at uni and while I was at uni, I've kind of worked in graphics and web design, web usability, branding, logo design, all that sort of stuff. My first proper product role was designing cookware, so it was a lot of kitchenware items and basically premium consumer goods. Did a bit of furniture and then landed a role at Mamas and Papas. Don't know if you're aware of Mamas and Papas, basically designing baby strollers, high chairs, toys and stuff like that. And then moved into the outdoor industry, so the types of products you'd find in Blacks, Cotswolds, Go Outdoors, all this sort of gear, backpacks and stuff like that. And there was a bit of packaging in that role as well, but now sort of come back to consumer electronics, consumer products, medical devices and healthcare projects. So I've kind of seen a fair amount of different types of projects as a designer. These are some of the brands, as Luke mentioned earlier, that I've been sort of lucky enough to work with. So the first role, I just want to kind of give you a bit of a flavour as to what a design job can be like. And so for me, it was really important in the role that I wanted it to use a lot of the different skills that I'd learned. There are some design jobs where, you're just a CAD monkey and you're on CAD all day, 8 hours a day. it was important to me that whatever job I had, it allowed me to deploy these different skills. So part of that would be all the primary research. So we'd be going out and, meeting mothers and fathers and spending time with kids and interacting with the products and stuff like that, doing all that market research, user trials. There'd be CAD work as well, and sketching, model making, prototyping. They had their own workshop there as well. You'd be working with engineers and figuring out mechanical problems and stuff like that. You'd be carrying out sort of what we call fit, feel and finish reports. So you're reviewing existing products and looking at ways in which you can improve those. Basically just all the different skills that you're learning here got to deploy in this role. So it's quite nice. This was the Mamas and Papas Armadillo Flip. So this is one of the main projects that I spent a lot of time on. That's currently in store at the minute. The second role was Life Venture, but there's two other brands that are owned by the same company. So there's Little Life, which is a nursery brand, Life Venture, and also Life Systems. So Life Venture is more your sort of travel products. Little Life is nursery outdoor stuff, and Life Systems is a bit more serious gear like survival shelters and mosquito nets and all that sort of stuff. So with this role, again, I was developing stuff like backpacks and thermal mugs, a bit of structural packaging. This was for sort of water filtration stuff, survival shelters, like I mentioned, and then some of the nursery stuff. So there was baby carriers, the type that you wear on your back, and then also like rucksacks for 2-year-olds as well. So this was a Buzz Lightyear one that we collaborated with Disney on. Another great thing about working in-house, so like I said, doing the cookware, that was part of a consultancy. Where I am now as part of a consultancy, this role was being an in-house designer. So you're expected to build your knowledge in a particular industry if you're working in-house. So being part of the outdoor industry, every year we'd go to, this is one of the largest trade shows in the world for outdoor gear. It's called Friedrichshafen in Germany. And you've basically got every outdoor brand under the sun. And it's just about 3 or 4 days just going through all the latest products for these brands. And so you get to travel and learn a few things as well. So another thing that I'm involved with is ArtsThread. If you guys aren't aware of ArtsThread, I'd note that down now. This is definitely something you need to be checking out. ArtsThread basically acts as a platform that helps young design students and graduates. We basically, every year at New Designers Exhibition, I've been running these portfolio review sessions, kind of like speed dating, but students get to sit down with a portfolio for about 10 minutes. And that's run, ArtsThread run that at New Designers, and more recently, London Design Festival and the V&A Museum. And there's a great opportunity here for you guys where you can host your portfolio on their site. There's about 80,000 portfolios on there, so it's a place where recruiters can come to and brands can come to find talent. But also, they also run some amazing competitions for students. They've run competitions in the past with Nike, Levi's, Urban Outfitters, BBC Worldwide, Eastpak. I think the winner of the latest Urban Outfitters competition had their product made and put in store. People who won competitions with Nike went and won internships at Nike Global HQ in Oregon in America, came back in their 3rd year after 2 months at Nike. You've got to be all over ArtsThread. You'll have heard of other online platforms similar to this, so Behance and Coraflot. Again, you need to be getting your portfolios on there, but definitely be checking out ArtsThread. And so, one thing I want to bring you guys is, it's a bit about me and my background, but really want to bring you guys some value as much as possible so you get something out of this. So, it's a bit about me, and I want to talk a bit about marketing yourself and your portfolio as well. But as well as that, I just want to talk a bit about some of the sort of approaches to design projects that I believe result in some better designs. So this first one, nobody in the world needs a drill. And the idea here is that we're boiling it down to really what is the essence of a problem, what's the core. And nobody in the world needs a drill because what they actually need is a hole. And we always want to be taking that approach. And so you can take that a level further, which is, if we don't need a drill, we need a hole. Well, what do we need the hole for? And if the hole is then for some sort of fixing on a wall, then the requirement there is to hang something. put something on a wall. So we're boiling it down to what is the actual requirement. Now, you could take that a level further and say, well, they were going to put a mirror on the wall. Well, what was the mirror for? Oh, it was to make it look like the room's bigger. Okay, so that's the requirement, the perception of an enlarged space. And we always just want to take this approach of really boiling it down to the core of a problem and always be asking why and trying to go a level deeper. Another one, so context and quality of questions. For me, a big part of being a good designer, I think, is in the questions that you ask. And in the initial phase of a project, there are so many questions to ask, and at the time they might not seem relevant, but really you want to be getting really deep into the context of the product's use. So asking questions like, what other products are used at the same time as the product that you're designing? What sort of environment is it being used in? Where is it placed when it's not being used? Just so many questions to be asking to better familiarise yourself with the environment in which the product's being used. And it's always going to lead to better outcomes that when you fully understand the context. So this is an example of a project that I worked on at IDC. It's basically a surgical instrument that a vascular surgeon uses in an operation called vascular anastomosis. This is basically stitching an artery back together again. And what we had to do was analyse video footage of this surgical operation taking place. And if you go and land a design role as a consultant, you are going to be expected to build a strong point of view on things that you know absolutely nothing about. And you need to build a strong point of view as quickly as possible and asking the right questions so that you're as informed as possible to make design decisions. And so with this one, basically, this adhesive has to be spread onto the surface at a particular thickness. Now that was one problem that had to be solved. How can we make sure that this adhesive is spread at a constant thickness and at the correct thickness? But we've gone one step further than that because we fully analysed the context and improved the ergonomics by flipping the orientation of this tip of this applicator through 90 degrees, and it just completely improved the ergonomics of how that's dealt with. So just urging you to fully understand the context of use. Another approach, there's two ports of call that are really great in any project, which is historical and geographical. So that would be, if you're doing a project about cutting grass, historical would be, how did we cut grass 50 years ago? How did we cut grass 100 years ago? How did we cut grass 500 years ago? Geographical, how did they cut grass in Chile? How did they cut grass in Mongolia? You know, doing these types of exercises is going to build your knowledge. If you only ever base your designs on sort of one generation before you, or just what's currently on the market, really you're only going to be looking at incremental improvement. What we're interested in is innovation, and that means that you have to question everything that's gone before. And there's a chance that in certain product categories, a design and a product might have taken a certain route, and that decision and that path might be based on the technology at the time, people's behaviour at the time, and you need to go back to these points where there was decisions made and that actually we can unlock new ideas and fresh thinking. So two great ports of call you should take with every project. Another one is to have empathy for every stakeholder. Now, if you think about a particular product, normally you can name, and what we mean by a stakeholder is just anyone who's impacted by the design of that product. Now, it's very easy to say who the end user is, but normally it's much larger than that. I just need to consider everyone. So for this project, this was the birthing chair. It's looking at, you might say the mother is the user, but it's much bigger than that. The midwife is as much a user of this product as the mother. We're considering people like who cleans the equipment when it's been used, which is someone different to the midwife and different to the mother. when I was doing this project, I built a relationship with a manufacturer of hospital equipment. So I was learning about how these actual parts are made, which influences the design. So we're putting holes in particular areas to help for hanging, for powder coating, or for gases to escape when we're welding and stuff like that. And then also, not just are we considering how we can make life easier in terms of the manufacture, but also in terms of the assembly of the manufactured parts. And just considering every single person who has any interaction with this product, you're going to have a much well-rounded product, pleasing more people if you consider every stakeholder. So it's just one bit. This is actually a competitor to the product that I designed, which is just a big lump of plastic, basically. And then, so I want to talk to you guys about portfolios as well. I've been very, very lucky to have some great feedback on my own portfolio from some pretty big names and big hitters in the design industry. And I can pass that on, and that mixed with my own opinions and what I've seen from, just looking at portfolios over the years and interviewing people for graduate positions, just all of that combined. I think I've got some stuff that you can take away from this. First thing, this lady here, Amina, she wrote a book called Breaking In Product Design, which is basically, she interviewed 100 design directors in the world. People from Nike, Jeep, Samsung, IDEO, and basically asked them all the same questions, which were, what do you look for in a design portfolio? Can you tell us about a portfolio that's caught your attention in the last 6 months? Asked every single one of them the same questions. If you're not buying that book, it surprises me that, you can pay £30 for a book, yet you spend £9,000 a year to come here. Why would you not be going and buying that book and checking out all these materials? Really, really valuable. So my first point is that you've got to be showing your process. Your portfolio should not look like a catalogue of your products. You need to show your thought process and how you got there. If you're only showing the final product, then that's all that you can be judged on. But if you're showing your thinking, your development, your sketch work, how you got there, your thought process, that's really where the gold is. So you need to be capturing your process in your portfolio. It's all about selling you and not the products themselves. A really great exercise is that if you think of all the skills you have as a designer, if you only put the final products and renders in your portfolio, they can only judge you on the product. But if you list out all the skills you have, by taking that approach of just putting the final product in, you're doing yourself a disservice, because you're not going to show that you can render in Photoshop and do really nice line drawings in Illustrator and you're a great sketcher and you've got really great ideas and here's a sketch page of the ideas that led to the refined concept. You're not going to show all that, so you need to be capturing that sort of stuff. I went for an interview once. I wasn't long out of university, up in Manchester, and basically it was quite frustrating because I had a lot of these skills that they wanted to see, and for whatever reason I wasn't showing them in my portfolio. So I'm sat there thinking, I can do all this, but there's just no evidence of it. So I kind of turned it into this thing. He said something similar, but if I can't see it, you can't do it. And if you're not showing evidence of skills, then how else is someone meant to know that you're capable of it? So you need to be showing evidence of these things. Another point is to show your best. Quantity does nothing. The portfolio is all about landing an interview. It's all about landing an interview, that's it. And you only need to show enough intrigue for them to go, right, let's bring him in for an interview. And you've got to be showing your best. Your portfolio does not... I reviewed a portfolio recently. It's about 82 pages long. It's crazy. You could show 10 pages, and if they're awesome, you'd land an interview. So it's not about quantity. You need to maintain the quality. I just mentioned this, but the goal is an interview. this is one of the main things you need to note down here, because this will steer how you design your portfolio. The goal is to land an interview. It's not to get a job offer. And when you take that mindset, loads of crap will start coming out of the portfolio. You'll realise you don't need to tell the full story, every single detail, every single task of everything you did on a project. You're just creating enough intrigue to bring you in for an interview. And so, like, big blocks of text that describe the sorts of things you did in the project, it's not good enough. It needs to be visual. People just haven't got time to be reading these paragraphs. And the other thing is, it's way too easy. It's way too easy to just write a big paragraph of text explaining what's so good about it, or all the types of things you did to get there. You need to show visual evidence. This is something I get a lot. So doing those portfolio reviews at new designers, I'll be flicking through the portfolio and people are like apologising for projects that are in there, sort of saying, yeah, that one's from first year, or you can skip past that one. If that's your attitude to a project, a design director with 20 years experience is going to rip it to shreds. They're just going to rip it apart, and they'll probably spend more time on that one ripping you apart, and you'll want to go through it to show some great work that's 5 pages on. If that's your attitude towards a particular project, 2 options: take it out, or make it better. Another question that get asked quite a lot. I know that product designers have a lot of other interests, and photography is normally one, graphic design is normally one. There's a danger that you want to show all these skills you've got. Look at me, I'm really impressive, I've got all these skills. Just remember that if you're applying for a product design job, you're being hired to be an awesome product designer. So just make sure that you're showing that first and foremost. If you're applying for a mechanical engineering role, show that you are awesome at mechanical engineering. It's surprising how simple that sounds, but how few people do it. If you've got a passion for photography, you can put that in your CV. Now, what you've done is you've planted a seed that someone might ask you about in an interview, and you could show some of your photography work in an interview. But don't be putting 6 pages of photography in a 20-page portfolio. You're not selling yourself in the right way. Silent validation. This one's so important, which is you cannot just be writing things that, because you might think that you're really, really good as a designer, and you might think that you're creative, you might have loads of confidence that you have so many abilities. It's not good enough to just write it. You've got to prove these things. If you say, I'm a creative individual, it does absolutely nothing to change my opinion of how creative you are. Nothing. You need to prove it with visual evidence and work and creative projects. Again, it sounds so simple. You'd be surprised how many people are just trying to communicate their abilities in words rather than actual evidence of this work that people want to see. You need to be creating your portfolio in InDesign. There's no other tool you should be using for that. Keep it around 5 meg. Don't go over 10. And that's kind of a lot of the stuff on portfolios. We'll do a bit of Q&A at the end, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions around that. But in terms of portfolios, we could talk on that for a long time. So I just want to change it a bit and talk a bit about you guys marketing yourselves. So having a great portfolio is, in terms of marketing, that has to be there. There's no point trying to get your name out there to everyone in the world if your portfolio's shit. That needs to be awesome first before you start drawing attention to yourself. There's a great guy, check him out, he's called Seth Godin, probably regarded as the top marketing mind on the planet. He wrote a book called Purple Cow, which was all about make your business remarkable as in worth talking about, worth remarking about. It starts with the product being remarkable, as in your portfolio, and that will draw attention. And when you start marketing yourself, you've got something worth talking about that you're drawing people to. The idea here of, it's a global stage, and the fact you need to think big about your own portfolio and your own work. If you're the best in this room right now, someone in this room is the best designer in this room. That is an incredibly small pond. And you need to just up your game and don't get complacent and think, I'm getting the best marks here, or I'm delivering the best projects in this uni. It's an incredibly small pond. We've got a studio in Shanghai with people from China, Mongolia, France, Portugal, our UK office, people from a whole load of nationalities. It's a global stage. So the level at which you think and compare yourself to in terms of presentation and design work and all that, if you've designed a speaker for one of your projects, don't look at sort of other students' work. Go and look at the latest Bang & Olufsen ad in a GQ magazine. How are they presenting it? That's the sort of level at which we need to be thinking. I reviewed a graphic designer's portfolio recently, and he'd done a logo for the basketball team of the university that he went to, and all it was just a logo on a page, and it didn't show any development work, and it was just really bang average in terms of how it was presented. Now, if you think if Chicago Bulls had a total rebrand, how would they come out and show that? And there's cheap ways in being resourceful to sort of up the level at which you're presenting stuff. So it's kind of urging him, go and get some basketball jerseys printed with the new logo on. Go and get someone doing a slam dunk with an awesome photo where the logo is visible. That's the sort of level we want to be thinking of when we're presenting stuff. So I just urge you to kind of get yourself online and look at the highest standards of what you're trying to do. World class. Don't compare yourself in a small pond. You guys have got such an opportunity here with Instagram. This is an amazing tool. Every single person in this room should be on Instagram. If you're not already, you probably are, but every single person needs to be on Instagram, and you need to be documenting your journey. If you guys are in your final year, you're doing your final major projects now, I would be recording video footage and taking photographs every single day of all sorts of shots and showing the development of this project. One, you'll be able to market yourself and create awareness through Instagram. The other thing is you'll then have a lot of content and a lot of media to work with at the end of the project. So I would definitely be recording your journey, putting it out there. It's an amazing tool. Some of the opportunities that have come my way just through Instagram, it's amazing. I had Winsor & Newton. Do you know Winsor & Newton? How they make pro marker markers and brush marker and stuff. Global brand manager at Winsor & Newton got in touch just to say, would you mind doing a drawing for us to put on our packaging of the new brush marker set that will be sold worldwide? She found me because she searched the hashtag product design. It's amazing. I know people who've landed interviews, landed jobs purely through just dominating online through Instagram. You need to be recording your process and your development work on this.
Sorry,
go on, fella.
Would you recommend having one completely separate from personal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Because if you're selling yourself, what's your name?
Charlie.
Charlie. If you're Charlie, the designer, and I go on your profile and the first 12 photos are you and your cats, I'm not going to follow you.
Okay.
And it needs to be that. It needs to be that. And it needs to be consistent. Because there's that much shit in the world, there's that much noise of things that you can sign up to, that when I follow you, I don't want to then have to filter through your content as well. So yeah, keep it separate, I would. There's another point. I've not heard anyone talking about this. I only thought of talking about this recently, but go beyond satisfying academic criteria. Now, if you've done a project at university and that project was 6 weeks long and you turn up to an interview and you're not totally happy with that project, you cannot use, oh, it was only a 6-week project as an excuse. There is no reason whatsoever that just because you come here and study design and a project has been put on for you to do and it's 6 weeks long, there's no reason why you need to stop just because the university said this is the end of this project. If I was you, every single project that you do from now on, I would be exceeding the requirements of the criteria, because if you turn up for an interview, I don't really care what was expected by the university. The only aim of interviewing you is to try and draw out how good you are as a designer. Now, normally you'll get asked questions at the end of a project like, if you had to do this again, what would you do differently? Now, how great does that look if you said, funny you should say that, well, I did think about it, of what I could do, and I did it, what I wanted to do differently, and it was a group project, and this was the result, and actually I spent another 3 months on it myself, or a month, or whatever, and this is the direction I took it on, and I developed it further. I made 3D printed models, I went and prototyped it. It was only a 3-week project, but I wanted to take it further, and I went and took it to different types of users, blah, 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 blah. There's no reason why you need to stop just because the project does. And if your response is to tell me how busy you are, you've got shitloads of time, basically. There's just no excuse. If you think you're dead busy now, I think you've got a lot more free time on your hands than you probably think you have. And there's no reason why you couldn't just treat every single day at university as though it's a full day at work and more, to completely dominate these projects and go the extra mile and take them further than anyone else. There's not really anyone doing this, and I just think there's an opportunity for you guys to just show, A, you'd get to improve the design, so at the end of it your portfolio is going to be much better, and it just seems like just an obvious proactive thing to do. So that's just something I'd bear in mind. Another thing, this is a quote from Jay-Z. He said, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman." And basically, you've got to take this same approach and see yourself as a business. If you were a business trying to win more clients, you would be trying to improve your product. You'd be marketing. You'd be having a website. You'd be putting out content. You would be what events are your customers going to? You'd be attending those events, networking, putting yourself out there, meeting people, learning about things like search engine optimization. And really, I just think if you see yourself as more of a personal brand than a business, you'll probably accelerate your your progress in terms of where you're going to be and how you're marketing yourself. So that's just one observation. I actively put out content on my website that benefits students. So nickchubbdesign.com, that's my website. I had a recent post called Final Major Project Ideas for Product Design Students, where I just talk about approaches that you can take in terms of if you've got any self-directed projects. Another one I wrote more recently was talking about the danger of spreading yourself too thin as a student. And finding your vertical and what you go into as a specialist. So I kind of actively put out this content that benefits students. I hope a lot of you'll check that out and follow me on Instagram. I'm not saying that because, for any selfish reason other than I think you'll genuinely get a lot of value from what I'm putting out there. And that is my talk, so thank you very much. Yeah.